Narcissist's life, no explanations, no emotional reactions, no lingering availability, it doesn't land the way most people imagine. There is no immediate heartbreak, no deep reflection, no sudden awakening of empathy. What happens instead is something far more unsettling. At first, it doesn't even feel real to them. Your absence registers as a glitch in the system. You weren't supposed to leave quietly. You weren't supposed to stop responding. You weren't supposed to become unreachable without drama. And because narcissists rely on predictability, on knowing they can access you when they choose, your disappearance creates a psychological disturbance they don't know how to process. Initially, they feel confused rather than hurt. Their mind scrambles for familiar explanations. They assume you're busy, upset, playing hard to get, or trying to provoke a reaction. They check their phone more than they'll ever admit. They replay past conversations, not to understand you, but to locate where their control might have slipped. Narcissists don't experience loss the way emotionally healthy people do. They experience interruption. You weren't a partner to them, you were a source. And when that source goes silent without warning, it creates a sense of irritation mixed with disbelief. This is the stage where they expect you to come back. Then comes the ego bruise. As the silence stretches on, something sharper sets in. It's not sadness, it's insult. Your absence feels like defiance, like rejection, like a threat to the narrative they've built about themselves. Narcissists depend on the belief that they are desired, central, and irreplaceable. When you disappear without chasing, begging, or explaining, you quietly contradict that belief. And that contradiction hits their ego harder than any argument ever could. They start wondering why you're not reacting the way others did, why you're not desperate, why you're not still orbiting them emotionally. At this point, many narcissists attempt indirect control. They may post strategically on social media, suddenly appear happier, more attractive, more unbothered. This isn't healing, it's performance. They want to provoke curiosity, jealousy, or regret. Your silence feels unbearable because it denies them feedback. Narcissists regulate their self-worth externally. Without your reactions, your pain, your forgiveness, your emotional availability, they feel unanchored. And this is where anxiety begins to surface, even if they'd never label it that way. As your disappearance becomes undeniable, something deeper happens. The narcissist begins to feel exposed, not morally but existentially. Your absence forces them to sit with themselves longer than they're comfortable with. Without your energy to distract them, without someone absorbing their moods, validating their importance, or reacting to their manipulation, they are left with a quiet they don't know how to fill. This is when restlessness sets in. They may seek new attention quickly, jumping into conversations, relationships, or drama, not because they've moved on, but because they're trying to escape the discomfort your absence created. Contrary to popular belief, they don't miss you the way you miss them. They miss how you made them feel powerful, admired, needed, or superior. They miss the role you played in stabilizing their fragile self-image. And when you disappear, it forces them to confront an uncomfortable truth. Their influence over you wasn't as permanent as they believed. That realization doesn't lead to growth, it leads to resentment. Somewhere inside, they feel challenged, and narcissists don't respond well to challenges they can't control. This is often the stage where hoovering begins. Messages may appear out of nowhere. Casual check-ins, nostalgic reminders. Apologies that sound sincere but feel strangely hollow. These aren't expressions of accountability, they're attempts to re-establish access. The narcissist wants to know if the door is still unlocked, if you still respond, if they still matter. Even a negative reaction feels better than silence because it confirms relevance. When you don't respond, when you stay gone, it intensifies their internal frustration. But here's the part most people don't talk about. When a narcissist realizes you are truly gone, not emotionally available, not reactive, not reachable, their feelings begin to split. On the surface, they may act indifferent, dismissive, even contemptuous. They might tell others you were never important, that you were too much, or that they're better off without you. This is self-protection, because underneath that facade is a quieter, more unsettling emotion: loss of control. And for a narcissist, loss of control feels like identity erosion. They don't grieve the relationship, they grieve the power dynamic. They grieve the certainty that you'd always be there, absorbing blame, over-functioning emotionally, and staying connected even when it hurt. Your disappearance forces them to confront a world where people can leave without permission, where silence can be final, where charm doesn't always work. And that realization is deeply destabilizing. Over time, many narcissists rewrite the story. They tell themselves you were weak, unstable, or replaceable. This narrative isn't about you, it's about survival. Because accepting that someone walked away for their own well-being would require self-reflection. And self-reflection threatens the narcissistic defense system. So instead of growth, they choose distortion. They minimize you, devalue you, and emotionally erase you. Not because you didn't matter, but because you mattered in a way they can't tolerate acknowledging. And yet, even months or years later, your disappearance lingers in their psyche. Not consciously, not romantically, but as a reference point. You become the one who broke the pattern, the one who didn't come back, the one they couldn't fully control. And while they'll never admit it, that absence becomes a quiet reminder of a limitation they don't want to face. That some people don't stay, that some sources don't return, that some doors close without explanation. For you, disappearing wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about self-preservation. It was about choosing peace over proving a point. And that choice, made silently without justification, is what affected them the most. Not because it hurt them emotionally, but because it removed you from a role they assumed you'd always play. You stopped participating in the cycle. You stopped feeding the dynamic. And when you did, the narcissist was left alone with something they avoid at all costs: themselves. Your disappearance didn't teach them empathy. It didn't heal them, but it did something powerful. It ended their access to you. And for someone who measures worth through control, attention, and emotional leverage, that loss is something they never fully forget, even if they pretend they have. If this message resonated, take a moment to sit with what it revealed. Disappearing wasn't weakness. It was clarity. You didn't lose them. You reclaimed yourself. And that shift matters more than any reaction they could have given you. If these conversations help you understand emotional dynamics more clearly, support the channel by liking the video. It tells the algorithm this content matters. Subscribe if you want more psychology-based insights on healing.